Okay, so we're diving into rental guarantees in Thailand today.
Okay.
You've been looking at owning like your own little slice of paradise over there.
Right.
And honestly, who wouldn't be tempted when a developer's like, hey, we're going to give you a guarantee on that rental income?
Yeah. It's very appealing, especially when you're just kind of getting your feet wet with international real estate. You know, it's like, oh, wow, that takes away a big chunk of the risk, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because you're imagining like, oh, I can just sit back and the money's just going to roll in.
Exactly.
But obviously, we got to look at this with a critical eye.
Absolutely.
We're talking like developers are saying things like 5 to 7% return on your investment year after year.
Right.
But you shared this really interesting article from Ocean Worldwide, and it really emphasized that you got to read the fine print.
For sure, because that's where it gets really interesting. You know what they say, if it sounds too good to be true?
It probably is.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is where they were saying that like the experience of a real estate agent really comes into play.
For sure.
Because they made a distinction between these kind of seasoned professionals and then what they called
Would-be agents.
would-be agents, yes. And I was like, would-be agents. That's putting it nicely.
Yeah, very diplomatic.
So what are we talking about here? What's the difference between these two?
So when we're talking about a seasoned professional, we're talking about someone who's been in the Thai real estate market for, a good amount of time. They have that experience, so they can really get a feel for what's a genuinely promising opportunity versus something that might be, more hype than substance.
So it's not just about a slick website or a really good sales pitch.
No, not at all.
It's about them actually knowing the market and having that experience.
Absolutely. It's about their knowledge of the developers, knowing which developers consistently deliver on their promises, which ones have a track record of maybe over-promising and under-delivering, things like that.
So they're doing their research, basically.
Yeah, exactly. They're not just skimming through those glossy brochures. They're actually doing their due diligence.
Yeah.
They're doing background checks on the developers. They're looking into the quality of their past projects, things like, what are the occupancy rates like? Are they actually achieving the rental income that they projected? And crucially, are those rental guarantee projections based on solid market analysis? Or are they just, kind of pie in the sky hopes and dreams?
It's like they're doing the deep dive for us, but on the developers.
Exactly. They're going deep. They're not messing around. They understand that your investment is a big deal, and they're not just trying to, make a quick buck. They want to make sure that you're making a smart decision that's going to benefit you in the long run.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, what about those less experienced agents? Because I feel like the article was being very polite, shall we say.
Yeah, they were walking on eggshells a little bit.
In their descriptions.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting. I think from an investor standpoint, the article kind of hinted that those less seasoned agents, they might not have the same level of market knowledge, right? They might not have that deep understanding to really assess a particular project and see how well it aligns with your investment goals or your risk tolerance.
So they might be recommending something or like steering people toward a rental guarantee scheme that looks really good on paper, but might not actually be a good fit for that particular investor.
Exactly. It's like a one-size-fits-all approach. And that's not what you want when you're dealing with something as important as your money and your investments. You want something that's tailored to your needs.
So it's not just about are they recommending a rental guarantee? It's also about how deep are they going into looking at this developer and these projections?
Absolutely. And that's where the due diligence comes in. Are they actually scrutinizing that developer's track record? Are they asking the tough questions about those long-term rental guarantees? Because if they're not doing their homework, you as the investor, you might end up paying the price.
And I imagine it's easy to get caught up in, like you said, the excitement of it all.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you're, picturing yourself on a beach in Thailand.
Right.
Sipping a cocktail. It's like, who wouldn't want a piece of that? But you have to remember that this is still an investment. And it's important to approach it with a level head and make sure you're not letting those emotions cloud your judgment.
Yeah, so it's not about discouraging anyone from looking at rental guarantees in Thailand.
No, not at all.
It's about being realistic about it and also really understanding what questions to ask.
Exactly. And it's about changing your mindset a little bit. Instead of thinking, how can I find a rental guarantee in Thailand? You want to be thinking, how can I find a trustworthy, knowledgeable agent who can help me evaluate if a rental guarantee is right for me?
That's such a good distinction.
Yeah. It's a subtle shift, but it's a really important one because it puts the emphasis on finding the right partner, someone who's going to be in your corner and looking out for your best interests.
So instead of them just showing us a menu of options.
Right. It's not just about, Here are 5 different condos with guaranteed returns. Pick one.
Right.
It's about them understanding your appetite, what are your investment goals, what's your risk tolerance, and then helping you sort through all those options and find the investment that really speaks to you.
I like that it speaks to you. That really resonates.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you want to feel good about your investment. You want to feel confident, and that comes from knowing that you've done your due diligence, you've asked the right questions, and you've partnered with someone who has your back.
And part of that is them being honest with us too, right?
Absolutely. A good agent is not afraid to say no.
Which is hard.
It is, especially when a sale is on the line. But a truly ethical and experienced agent, they prioritize your financial well-being over making a quick buck. They'd rather preserve their reputation and your financial security than push you into something that's not a good fit.
Okay, so for someone listening and they're maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed, which is understandable.
Sure.
What are some red flags if they're talking to an agent? What are some signs that this person may not be as thorough as we would want them to be?
I think a big red flag is if you're sensing that they're trying to push you towards a particular project or developer without really taking the time to understand your financial situation, your goals, your risk tolerance. It's like they're just trying to check boxes instead of really listening to you and understanding your needs.
Okay, so really feeling like they're listening to us.
Yes, absolutely. Feeling heard and understood. That's crucial.
And then how do we make sure we're working with an agent who has that expertise and that integrity we keep talking about?
Word of mouth is huge. Don't be afraid to ask for referrals. Talk to other people who have invested in Thai real estate. See who they've had good experiences with, because in this industry, reputation is everything.
Like finding a good restaurant.
Exactly. You trust your friends' recommendations, right?
Yeah.
So why not do the same for something as important as your investments?
And then what else, when we're talking to these agents, what are some questions we should be asking to vet them?
Experience matters. Don't be shy about asking about their track record. How long have they been operating in Thailand? Are they familiar with this specific type of property or location that you're interested in? And don't be afraid to ask for specifics like, can you tell me about a time when you helped a client navigate a challenging situation? Or can you share an example of a successful investment that you facilitated? Those kinds of questions can really give you a sense of their experience and their problem-solving abilities, because you're right, things don't always go smoothly.
Ever.
There are always bumps in the road, and you want someone who's going to be there for you through thick and thin, not just when it's easy.
Yeah, you don't want someone who's just going to, like you said, abandon ship when the going gets tough.
Exactly. You want that seasoned captain who can steer you through those choppy waters.
Okay, so experience, track record. Those are key.
Absolutely, and transparency is huge too, especially when it comes to things like their fees and their commission structure. A trustworthy agent will be completely upfront about that from the get-go. No hidden costs, no surprises later on.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. Like, just lay it all out there. Let's be open and honest.
Exactly, because you want to go into this with your eyes wide open, right?
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the agent, but what about the actual rental guarantees themselves? Like, what are the details? What do those agreements actually look like?
Yeah, so it's important to remember that rental guarantee, it's not like a one-size-fits-all term. There are actually different types of guarantees out there, each with their own specific terms and conditions.
Okay.
Some might be a fixed rental return for a certain number of years, like you mentioned earlier, maybe 5 years or something. But others can get a little bit more complex. Some might be tied to the occupancy rate of the property or even like the overall financial performance of the entire development.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of variation there, so it's really important to understand exactly what you're getting into.
So even with a really good agent, even if everything seems like, okay, this is a good deal, what are some potential downsides investors need to be aware of?
Well, one thing that people often misunderstand is that just because there's a rental guarantee doesn't mean that you're completely off the hook when it comes to managing the property.
Oh, really? I thought that was the whole point.
A lot of people think that, but in reality, there are often restrictions built into those agreements, like your own personal use of the property might be limited, especially during peak tourist season when they could be renting it out for top dollar.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, they want to maximize that rental income, right?
Yeah.
So you might have to be a little bit flexible with your own vacation plans.
So it's not just like, oh, I bought this condo and now I can go to Thailand whenever I want.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, and then what happens after that initial guarantee period is over?
That's a really good question, and it's something that a lot of people don't think about up front. But it's crucial. You know, what happens after those 5 years are up? Does the developer continue to manage the property, or do they hand over the reins to you and then you're responsible for finding your own property management company?
Right, so you're kind of on your own, potentially.
Exactly. And those ongoing costs can really eat into your profits if you're not prepared for them.
That's a really good point.
And, those guaranteed returns, while they sound great, they can sometimes artificially inflate the price of the property.
Really?
Yeah, so you might end up paying a premium for that guarantee, and that can affect your resale value down the line, especially if the local rental market takes a dip or if the development doesn't quite live up to the hype.
Interesting. So it's not just about what they're guaranteeing, it's about how that guarantee affects the overall price of the property.
Exactly, you got to look at the big picture.
So for someone who's listening and thinking, okay, this is exciting, I'm going to look more into this,
Yeah.
what are your top takeaways when it comes to rental guarantees in Thailand?
I think number one is knowledge is power. Do your research, ask questions. Don't just take those glossy brochures at face value.
Don't just take our word for it, go do your own research.
Exactly. And secondly, think of a rental guarantee as just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
It's not like a guaranteed path to riches, right? It's one strategy you can use as part of a larger investment plan.
I like that one piece of the puzzle.
And lastly, remember that a good real estate agent can be your secret weapon in all of this.
They're the ones who've been there. They know the lay of the land.
Yeah.
They can help us avoid those pitfalls.
Exactly. They can guide you through that jungle.
So as we're wrapping up here, any final words of wisdom for our listeners when it comes to these rental guarantees in Thailand?
At the end of the day, trust your gut.
Okay.
If something doesn't feel right, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Don't be afraid to walk away.
Better safe than sorry, right?
Exactly. There are other fish in the sea, or I guess other condos on the beach in this case.
And other good agents, too.
Exactly. Don't feel pressured. Just because an agent is really gung-ho about something doesn't mean it's the right fit for you.
Take your time.
Exactly. Do your homework and remember a good investment. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's such a good way to put it. I love that. So it's about being informed, doing your research, but also trusting your instincts and find the right people to work with.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it's your money and your investment, so you're the one in the driver's seat.
I love it. Well said. Thank you so much for diving deep with me on this.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk about Thailand.
And to all our listeners out there, we hope you found this helpful, informative, and maybe even a little bit inspiring if you're thinking about taking the plunge into Thai real estate.
Yeah. Happy investing, everyone.
Happy investing. Until next time, we'll see you on our next deep dive.